Before we get started, I just want to dedicate this episode to Roxy Ryot, who we sadly lost this week. I didn't know her personally, but she was absolutely a fantastic wrestler. Um, in the link in the description, there is a link to a GoFundMe page for her family. If you can, please donate. And my thoughts and prayers go out to her family. Thank you. Hello, welcome to another episode of What If It's Cool, the show where we talk about anything and everything that is cool in the world today. I am Caught in Conversation Daniel Paul Crow. On this episode, I have an interview with John L. Crossfire. We talk about how he got into the world of professional wrestling, his podcast Caught in Conversation, and we talk about the condition that he suffers with his eyes. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. It's only a matter of time with John L. Crossfire.
John, firstly, thank you for being part of the show. I know, you're recovering and you're doing a lot just to, get your health back in order. And I do take the time. Do thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here. Now, the main reason why I wanted you to be on the show, because obviously you posted recently saying that you were apologizing because you haven't had content. Now, this is the first episode where, it's kind of like a crossover because he's obviously the host of Caught in Conversation, which is definitely yeah, but that's okay. I mean, I'm not wearing my merch either, and I'm wearing a beautiful B Squared T-shirt. But by the way, you can get by messaging Ildizia and PJ Red on Instagram. Definitely support those guys. That's a cheeky plug.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, like you have a great show, and look, and like I was just saying to you off camera. You don't have to apologize for anything. You got a lot of great content out there, but what I wanted to firstly find out what's been happening in your life that's prompted that.
So basically, I'm sure I don't know how long we'll get into it because Zoom time constraints, but I was lucky enough to get to live my dream as a wrestler for a handful of years. A lot of people don't realize that the entire time I was wrestling half blind. I've been blind in this eye since I was 14 years old. Hopefully we can cuss in here. I've only seen bits and pieces of your content as well, so kind of meeting each other. But yeah, I wrestled for a few years. My shoot job was I was a janitor. Lovely stuff, but it paid for my wife's wedding ring, so look, that came out of it. But I got an infection in this eye, and then that was a whole ordeal for all of 2021.
Right.
Fast forward to 2022, I've had surgery now on this eye. It's currently recovering, and then just between all the surgery recovery and the backwards and forwards and just everything, I just haven't had a chance to put content out. And like I have ADHD, so I hyper focus on a lot of things. So it was kind of like almost an apology to myself as well as the people, because I've had so many people, and I'm very grateful for it, but I've had so many people, wrestling friends, that have said, when are we going to do another one, or when are you putting more out? And I felt so bad because at that time someone was like, when's the next pod coming out? And I'm like, and then I just went into this real ADHD spiral of my logo is on the DMTU canvas. I haven't covered anything of theirs since then.
Yeah,
I'm like 10 shows behind, haven't had content in general, and I don't know, because it was for the NGL thing, so I don't know who asked me that, but it just kind of got me thinking, and I was like, well, whoever asked me that, I'm really sorry, because I know that other people had asked me about content and stuff as well.
it's hard because obviously you're going through a bit of health problems, and I think our core audiences as a whole can understand that, and if they don't, well, each their own. But the biggest thing that I will commend you, sir, on this one is you actually are looking after yourself, because like so many people will push on through, and sometimes they might get great content out of it, sometimes they may not, but they're just putting their health at risk, and I think you're doing the best job you can by putting yourself first on this one.
Yeah, well, the most recent episode of the pod, which was a couple months ago now, was the preview of the Anarchy Pros When Legend Rise. But
yeah,
before that, a lot of the last few episodes were literally just me and my wife, either in our lounge room or even in the hotel room in Sydney, just talking about my eye updates and stuff. But I was still like, we just need to put out something. But yeah, it just got to a point where unfortunately it is on hold. It's looking like, now that everything's back on track and I'll be able to go to, my shows with ICW Australia more frequently, I'll hopefully be able to pull more guys and girls aside before the show and hopefully get more stuff out there. But yeah, as you say, it can't be helped, but that's just the person I am. Like someone asked me about it, I was like, oh, I feel bad. Like I feel like I'm letting people and myself down. That's just ADHD, anxiety, depression. It all just kind of smushes, and you know.
I don't worry, man. I like for what was it? Jeez, almost a year. Because when the show had its reshuffle, I think it was 6 months before I did one episode, and then that one episode it was like a 5-6 month gap, and then I did 4 in a row, and then another 3 months off, and then I've been kicking goals ever since January roundabout because I just went, F it. I'm just gonna turn this podcast into whatever the I want, and that's what we're doing. So yeah, but again, this is not about me. I'm here about to talk about you. I don't know why it always comes back to me. I know I love myself, but I got to talk about you, man.
I do honestly, from being someone that's been on the other side, I do the same thing because it's like that reminds me of a time, and it's like I'm not trying to step on you, but just trying to relate here. We're trying to have a conversation.
Yeah, but
I completely get it. I get it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about if you don't mind about your eye. So what actually happened when you were younger with the one that you've been blind for that long?
So, well, this will be actually when it finishes healing. This will be the best eyesight I've had in this eye particular since I was 8 years old. I used to wear glasses as a kid. Once I got to about 10 or 11, like it just kept changing prescriptions. Glasses just weren't working. They couldn't work out why. Sent me to doctors in Sydney, Canberra, Moss Vale, just all over the central New South Wales and ACT, basically. And eventually they realized that I was diagnosed with a condition called keratoconus, which another wrestler in New South Wales actually had a few years ago, Jason Dewhurst, or Jayla J, which is crazy because when I was first diagnosed back when I was 13, 14, it was a very rare condition, but I actually know a handful of people now that have had the same thing. But yeah, so basically with your corneas, they're meant to be circular or more of an oval shape. Mine, they described as a cone shape, right? So it starts as a cylinder, but then you come in and it's the point, which obviously, usually like if people have retina problems, it just basically goes dark, right? Or cataracts.
Right.
With the keratoconus, I still have vision there, but it's just this big blurry white cloud with bits of colors kind of poking through. And yeah, like I was sitting there and it was, I think it must have been year 7 because I was 12, 13-ish when it first started happening.
Yeah.
I found I had to start moving to the start of the class, like the front of the classroom, and I'm sitting in the front of the classroom, got my glasses on, still squinting, and I'm like, I still can't read what the that chalkboard says, right? So they're like, oh, okay, maybe we'll go to this specialist. And that's when they eventually took me to I don't know how many specialists I'd seen throughout the years from childhood to high school, but eventually end of year 7, start of year 8, they're like, go see this specialist in Sydney. And straight away, they couldn't have been more helpful. They picked up everything pretty much. And then, yeah, it was like, you have a condition, it's in both eyes, but they're kind of moving at different rates. It literally, a couple of months would go by, this would be my good eye. A few more months would go by, that'd be my good eye. And then eventually they're like, you're going to need to have a cornea transplant because they tried. This one was super scarred because of the condition, so they couldn't wear lenses at all.
Yeah.
And I had contact lenses in this eye. I went through 4 or 5 different sets because, again, similar to the glasses, kept changing the prescription. The shape of the eye was changing, so the lenses weren't fitting. So that then scratched the out of this eye.
Oh, gee.
They decided that the right eye was the least scratched up of the two. Did a full cornea transplant in that one, February 2011. So just a few months after I turned 16. So yeah, I've been going basically just with one eye from now up until 2021, pretty much blind completely because it was at a standstill. It hit a point where it stopped. And they were actually originally going to do laser surgery to the left so I could keep wearing the lens. And then I guess eventually they basically just decided that I had one eye. there is a lot of people that unfortunately are still worse off than me. So they basically said, bugger off, unless you've got 20 grand to play for the surgery. And at the time I was living with my grandparents because my dad and I, we had a very rocky relationship, and my mum, by that point, she'd moved away to be with my my youngest brother's father. So I was like, okay, poor Nan and Pop are trying to, support me. They can't do this. So it was just pretty much, just forced to go through life with one eye. And then you fast forward all the way to 2021. I woke up one morning, my eye wouldn't open. I literally had to force it open, and all of this pus, like, just.
Whoa.
And my wife's like, well, I'm calling your boss for you, whether they fucking like it or not, Luckily, of all the times my mum came to visit me, she was in town, went to see the doctor. The doctor goes, you need to get to the hospital ASAP. They literally put me under the microscope for 30 seconds, and they're like, the eye doctor's not here. You need to go home, come back 5 o'clock in the morning. You could lose your eye in the next 24 hours. So obviously I've come home.
Holy
Obviously I haven't fucking slept because my eye was borderline exploding, right? And it was my good eye at the time. And yeah, they admitted me to hospital 3 days, every hour on the hour, really strong drops that they had to make up in the lab at the hospital. It paused the infection that I had, but it wasn't getting rid of it. So then they basically like got me into Sydney. They managed to squeeze me in because it was an emergency.
Yeah.
Sydney's gone, okay, you're just going to have to change this, this, and this. Come back in 2 days. And I'm like, where the f am I going to stay? Like kayfabe aside, I live down near Wagga area. So that's a, 4.5 hour drive.
Yep.
So luckily I stayed at my sister. She lives about an hour or so out of Sydney. So I managed to stay with her, gave her every little bit of money I could for just fuel money and that, because for the whole week she's running me back to the Sydney Eye Hospital, and eventually they're like, it's working. Come back in a month's time. Just keep this up, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, for about 6-8 months, they were treating this one once the infection was gone, just to try and keep the scarring to minimal. And because that was the eye that by this point had been operated on, where the main abscess was, it was actually right on the border of my cornea.
Yeah.
So like, had that have exploded, it literally, when they said my eye could explode, they weren't joking. Like, the whole fucking thing would have come undone, like, if that abscess burst. So then it was like they had to treat that. They got rid of the infection, but because they're treating it, the drugs are then elevating the pressure even more. So it's like, okay, your eye's not infected anymore, but the risk of explosion has basically increased. So it's like, okay, well, I was like, well, I'm not going back to wrestling anytime soon. And then it got to a point where they actually told me at one point that I'd never wrestle again, which that broke my fucking heart, and I broke down in front of my wife. And that was probably the most selfish thing ever, because rather than thinking about watching her grow old or watching future kids grow up, the first thing out of my mouth while laying in a hospital bed was, what if I never wrestle again? But luckily, she knew what she was getting into when she married me. She knows what my one-track mind is like. But yeah, they fixed the eye. We went and we got married in October of that year, and then it was just constant checkups, make sure the scarring's gone down. The right eye is fine now. So then they fixed the right eye, and they're like, you know what? You've had this surgery, 15 years ago at that point, almost 15 years. I'm 30 next year. What's math? But yeah, they're like, you've had this surgery all this time ago. We need to fix the other eye in case something happens again. Because for the first 3 months of it, while they were working on it, I was basically blind for the first 3 months of 2021. I'm apologizing that I'm kind of all over the place with the story. Hopefully it'll make sense once it's, but yeah, they're basically like, your right eye's pretty much, like, until we get it under control. So they got it under control, and then they're like, you know what? We're going to look at finally doing the transplant of the left eye as well. And then, yeah, they took a look at it. They put me on the waiting list, and I don't know how or why, but somehow the severity of losing both eyes, they pushed me up the list. And it was meant to be February of last year. It was actually meant to be the week after DMDU roll on, because I took my wife away for both her birthday plus a belated mini honeymoon. Went and saw Richie Taylor's farewell match at the time. And then I was going to come home, pack my bags, head straight to Sydney, and then get this done. But on the way back from Melbourne, I caught COVID. So it was like, okay, I have to cancel this appointment, and then literally right on cue, my doctor calls me saying, "Hey, because of COVID, we're still backlogged. Can we push you back just a couple more months?" And I'm like, "Well, look, I've been blind in this motherfucker for almost 16 years at this point, so you might as well push it back a couple more months, right? Like, it ain't gonna change a damn thing, brother. Like, I was still going to work with what little vision I had in this eye, which, what a thing to do. Almost lost the eye at work and then go straight back to work because you got bills to pay."
Yeah.
But yeah, eventually, I got in May 2020, and it's just been one big long waiting game, because it's realistically, it's like fixing the right eye was step one, getting the transplant was step two, and now step three will be getting the stitches out, which won't be until at least September, possibly November, possibly December. So yeah, and then once the stitches come out, it'll be a year and a half before the vision is fully back in that eye to whatever extent it may or may not come back to. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's more of the waiting game. It sounds like more than it is, but in the moment, it's just a big run around. But the end of the day, I actually had an interview 2 days ago with the actual eye hospital. Some reason they thought I was interesting enough to talk about their program. And the way I look at it is, on these travels, like, we have to travel by public transport, because obviously with the eyes, I can't get my license.
Yeah, of course.
Pulling back, my wife does have a brain condition. She has IIH, which is swelling on the brain, so she can't get her license either. And then it's just like, I look at all like the elderly people and stuff like that still even have it even worse than I do, when they're forced to travel for hours upon hours on public transport. So I'm like, I'm young. I've packed on a bit more weight than I would have liked while being off work and out of the ring, but I'm still relatively fit compared to a lot of people out there that do suffer these conditions, because it is more frequent in elderly people. So I like to think that amidst everything, I'm still a relatively lucky person. And even the right eye, they said that by the time I was 30, I'd have to have it redone. They were half right, because I had to have this one done by the time I was 30. But every time they look at it, I always have the same specialist, but he's always bringing in like his trainees and stuff. And they're just amazed that for almost, 15, 16 years or whatever it is at this point, again, what's math, that the actual surgery site is one of the cleanest and strongest that they've seen. And that's even post-infection that almost, exploded the whole fucking thing. So it's kind of interesting, but kind of not at the same time. It's just, people are having worse things than I do,
I want to take it back to something you just said, and because obviously wrestling is your passion.
Wrestling.
And you're yeah, I'm doing my famous Ted Turner impression. I'll get into the wrestling business. Having been passionate about so many things in my life, and I've had news broken to me before, but obviously not in the same context. I don't think it's selfish at all for you to feel that way, to be honest, because obviously you're giving your whole heart to something, and it is heartbreaking no matter what. And people can be offended when people have that sort of thing, but at the end of the day, that could be your entire world for one aspect of your life. Don't ever feel guilty for that. Because like for me, and we bring it back to me for a second, when things happen for me for a completely different reason, I felt the world was just, I was feeling depressed about it. And so many people's like, oh, yeah, that's very selfish. I'm just like, but you don't realize how much that means to me. If it's, like your passion for wrestling here, it means that much. You should respect that. And I think you need to embrace that, because like, just for some of our talks, I can tell wrestling is what you really want to do in life. And I feel for you, man. If you can't do it for X amount of time, it is very heartbreaking. Don't feel selfish about it.
It's really hard, because I try to get not to get my hopes up, because at this point, again, it is just a waiting game. But I will be back in the ring in some form or fashion at some point. Now, granted, my best years may have been taken away from me. I am being realistic about that, but I'm still, to be able to get in and be physical in any role when they've originally told me that you're fucking done completely, is it really makes me very hopeful. But at the same time, there's always that 1% chance that I am worried, because something could go wrong. You're never wrong. But wrestling for me, and I don't know how fucking deep and sentimental and shit you want to get into this, but like, wrestling's always been that for me. Like as a kid, I was always, an outsider, an outcast, whatever. Like, look, pulling back the curtain aside, like when I'm in the ring, I call myself the real main event, the essential and whatever.
Mm.
John, the person behind that character, is just an anxious, depressed wreck, damn near 24/7. But wrestling for me, like it helped me through school, and then even during high school when I started losing my eyesight, I was getting bullied for that, like because kids are just pricks. Like of all things, like haha, you're blind. But wrestling got me through that. I fast forward to, you know, my dad and I, as I said, we had a very rocky relationship. He and my mom had a very, strained relationship as a kid. I think, I don't want to go too deep, but I think that's not revealing too much. But basically, he and my mom, they got divorced when I was very young. The one thing that always brought me and my dad back together as I got older through my teens was professional wrestling. I'd be talking about John Cena and doing this stupid and he's like, nah, John Cena's not Hulk Hogan. And then he showed me like Macho Man is my second favorite wrestler of all time. And that's because my dad showed me the Macho Mans, the Ricky Steamboats, the Jake the Snake Roberts. And it could be part of like the nostalgia connected with my dad, but that like 80s period is one of my favorite. Like, I'll go back and watch that over the Attitude Era, to be honest. But
yeah, same here, man. Easily.
Wrestling, it connected me and my dad. And then fast forward to actually being a wrestler to I started training in January of 2017. I looked at the calendar we had. There was a show on my 23rd birthday, and I'm just like, I want to be on that show. Like, even if it's just a referee, I know it's probably most likely going to be as a referee. I need to be on that show, right? That's a 10-month goal, basically. Find out a few months beforehand, yeah, okay, you're going to debut. You're going to be in a 6-man tag. You're only going to hit 2 moves. You're going to get the shit kicked out of you, but you're in a match. And it was just like fucking blew my mind, man. Like, walked around all day wearing my Michael Jordan jersey because I was 23 and I thought it was great. And I'm like, I'm going to feel like Michael Jordan tonight. Like, and it was crazy because it was in Canberra, which most of our shows are in Canberra. They had no idea who I was. And somehow within the span of 10 minutes, I connected with them and they were cheering my name, getting the shit kicked out of me on the floor. and then, my dad, a few months later, coming to watch me wrestle for the first time, and we hadn't spoken for probably 6-7 months at that point. And he just rocked up to watch me wrestle, and I don't think I've ever hugged him tighter in my entire life, to be honest.
Wow.
And then my grandfather passed away. Wrestling got me through that. My dad and I had another fallout. Wrestling got me through that, and then luckily we made up because again, he traveled. I had what's probably still my best match to date. It was technically a handicap match, but it was me versus Revan Diaz, and we just beat the out of each other. And literally, like, I couldn't see anything between being blind and the bright lights. I couldn't see anyone, but it's just like it's almost like a movie. I climbed up the top rope. The finish was me hitting a frog splash. I literally, for all the blur and all the people, I literally locked eyes with my dad, like on the top rope, and it was just like I broke down after the show, and I just hugged him, and then. Fast forward, 4 months later, I get a phone call saying that Dad's passed away because he was battling cancer the whole time.
Oh, man.
Literally, that whole week, we had a show the next week. And again, this is where maybe it's selfish, maybe it isn't, but that whole week, I was just counting down the days to that show. And literally the day after his funeral, everyone, family and friends, some got it, but to be honest, the majority of them didn't. They were like, you can't leave. But no, I traveled from here in Wagga. I went to Goulburn, where my family's from, for Dad's funeral. I traveled back to Wagga the night of Dad's funeral. I grabbed my went to Canberra the next day, straight after his funeral. And to be honest, I can't remember a thing from that match. I remember probably 1-2 spots, but everyone still says that's one of my better matches as well. And I feel like, I'm not a very religious person, but I'm very spiritual. I feel like I kind of had to do that for Dad. So then, again, ADHD, long-winded, but you fast forward all the way to you can't wrestle again, and I look at literally my whole life. It's been the one crutch that I can lean on, and I'm like, cool. So the one time I need it the most is you telling me you'll never do it again. And then now we're here, and mid 2024, 2025 was. Mid 2024 to the start of 2025 was my original goal when they told me that it could be a possibility. And now, as the months go by, it's looking like, obviously, if it's a bit later, it's life, can't be too disappointed. But the fact that it's actually starting to line up with what I've put together in my head, it feels good. And I'm, trying not to get too excited. But, at the end of the day, as I said, pull the curtain back. My character thinks he's the best fucking thing ever. I'm just a dude. So the fact that who've had, have had all these great guys from, Adrenaline and just Victoria in general, who all over anything I could do ever, and for you to be like, oh, you look interesting, I just appreciate that. Like, I've somehow built more connections with, like, yourself, and I guess, and MX Dub and Aki Pro, even DMDU, sitting on my ass recovering from illness than I did while I was actively wrestling in the business, which is mind blowing to me.
Mm. Well, the main reason why
That was a massive trauma dump. I'm sorry.
That's all right. But the main reason why this show is now in existence, because, like, not only just to elevate people, to promote them and everything, it's like there's a lot of stories that need to be told, and I think your story here, fantastic, man. And be proud of yourself, because I'm a little choked up, because, like, I mean, I haven't gone through what you've gone through with the eye thing. I've gone for something. No, I wouldn't even say even this is serious, but, like, because I'm deaf in one ear, and trying to get the hearing back in that is basically non-existent now, and I'm actually starting to lose the hearing in my left ear now, which sucks, but it is what it is. No. Look, it is what it is. Like, I shouldn't say I'm completely deaf in my right ear. I've got 20% hearing in the right ear, and I've only got, like, I think they said 70% now, but when the left ear is blocked up, I can't hear. I'm basically, completely mute. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought because I was talking about myself.
Between the two of us, we've got one eye and one ear. I swear I'm going deaf myself, man. Too much heavy metal in the earphones.
Ain't nothing wrong with heavy metal and earphones, man. But no, it's just to hear and inspire people who might be going through something completely different, and hearing your story. I hope someone's hearing this and going, okay, I'm in this situation. John's going through something completely different, but he's gone through that. Hopefully I can do that too. And I know what it's like to be be silent and be going through something, and not be inspired, or just being depressed about it. I'm very glad that you're very brave enough to talk about this, but hopefully, your story can inspire people. And that's what this whole show is, to not only just to have wrestlers, people who in the social media world, actors, directors, anything. It's just to hear great stories of just people building themselves up and just pushing on through, because at the end of the day, life can be and we all go through different things in our life, and we just need to have these little stories to help promote us up. And John, thank you so much for telling me your story tonight, because mate, you're fucking amazing, man, to go through that, because I don't know, honestly, I don't know, especially with the pain in the eye. I don't know how you went through that, man. It just, you're amazing.
I appreciate it. I can't actually see how much time we've got left on Zoom, so hopefully I don't go over here on you. But, like,
yeah,
that's the reason I got into wrestling to begin with, right? Because, like, you go through school and you get bullied or whatever else. I literally, like, originally, like, I didn't think I'd ever be able to be a wrestler because of my eyes, and I literally wanted to be the next Jim Ross. Like, Jim Ross was my hero, and to finally get the chance to do commentary because I had no choice but to, that's the only thing I could do because I couldn't wrestle. It's kind of cool in, like, a circle way, but I just wanted to make people feel something, and that's why I think that's why I'm so big on, like, when I go into character, it's like, people are like, oh, you acted a bit egotistical out there, and I'm like, bro, you in the same profession as me, like, that's why we're here, man. Like, it's all good. Like, if I could take you on an emotional roller coaster, that's better than any. Look, obviously, when you're a kid, you're like, oh, what a main event, WrestleMania. No, like, being an adult, you realize if I can take just one kid from that crowd for 10, 15, half an hour, like, however long the match is, it doesn't matter, and make them forget about any fucking thing that goes on outside that doors, then the way I've seen it, I've done my job. You can boo me, cheer me, whatever I'm doing on that night, it doesn't matter. But that's literally why I got into wrestling. So I appreciate you saying that, and I do hope that I can continue to do that with the pod when it does get up and running and future shows, whether I'm in the ring, commentary, doesn't matter. I want to make people feel something, and that's probably like pretty much every week on the podcast. I always throw the mental health thing out there when I do like my song of the week. It's not weak to speak. It's okay to not be okay. It doesn't matter what it is or isn't, whether it's a health issue, mental health. I don't give a fuck. Like I don't always know what to say, but y'all can, if you want someone to just listen, send me a message on Instagram. You never know what someone's going through, and like that's why I try my best to be nice to everyone. And it seems like a cop out because you look on social media and people are sharing things about, oh, people are only nice because they want something. No, like just don't be a dickhead. Like maybe I'm naive, but you never know what someone's going through. Just be nice to them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, we haven't got much time left. So firstly, where can we find you on all your socials?
So I'm at sensational_LJ. That's my main Instagram. Just go to that. It'll have my link tree in it. And then that can take you to my Twitter, my other Instagrams for both the podcast and my graphic design thing. I'm a amateur one-eyed graphic designer making wrestling posters. I'm gonna have to change that when this eye does get fixed. Imagine what they're gonna look like when the eye is healed. But yeah, you follow my link tree, it'll take you to all my respective Facebook pages for everything. If you feel like helping out, there is a Pro Wrestling Tees link. I do have hats and 8x10s here at the house if you're interested in stickers that I can post if you message me. But yeah, one last plug, ICW Australia, June 24th, Canberra PCYC, Insaneasylum. $10 for adults, $6 for kids. It's cash only at the door, but we do have a link online. For $10, you can yell at people for 3 hours. You can't go wrong. Family friendly, wheelchair accessible.
How could you go wrong? Seriously, that just.
Anyone who's in the Canberra area or wants to travel, hit us up.
Why the fuck can't you do like something like that here in Melbourne? Like a $10 show? I'd love to do that.
People, like, let's be honest, people, they crap on ICW because we don't have the best production, but every single wrestler gets in there, bust their ass, they have fun, and again, they give those kids and even the adults in the crowd a moment. So, yeah.
Exactly. No, but it doesn't matter what the production is. But it doesn't matter what the production value looks like. It's the action and just the feel of the crowd. That's all that really should matter. Who gives a what the thing is? Yeah. Well, John, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I know we haven't asked a staple question here what it was called, but we just don't have the time. But mate,
no, it's all good. If you want to set up another one, let me know, and I'm always down to chat.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. I got to have you on, and when you just to check on your progress, but just help motivate you to get the show back up and running. Because guys, his show is really good. Definitely check it out. If you love What If It's Cool, you're gonna love John's show as well, because it's. I don't want to say it's just as awesome because I want my show to get more listeners and stuff. brother. No, but in all honesty, no, guys, definitely check it out because he's had some really great guests on there, and he's going to be kicking goals once he heals up, and I just can't wait to see what's next for John. So definitely check him out on everything that he's on. John, thank you so much for being part of What If It's Cool.
Thank you very much, mate. Appreciate you.
And that's the end of that episode. Want to be featured on What If It's Cool, or know someone who has an interesting story that needs to be told? Reach out to me. I can be reached on whatifitscoolbusiness@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. Want more from What If It's Cool? Make sure to check out the YouTube channel where you can find the latest episodes of Mukbang Around, Reaction, and of course the podcast. Don't forget to follow What If It's Cool on all socials. It can be found at What If It's Cool. Keep that support coming. And until next time, I'll catch you on next one. Peace.